After producing some scintillating football in recent years under Mauricio Pochettino, and having won the award for most pressure applied to 2 consecutive title winners, isn't it about time that Spurs actually won a trophy of their own? With a new stadium on the horizon and a squad full of extraordinary talents that they won't want to lose, this is definitely an era-defining season for Spurs. So with the winter transfer market looming, and with them lagging off their rivals in quite a long way, we look at 5 players who Spurs could sign in their search for silverware. With all the money floating around the transfer market, wouldn't it be weird if 2 clubs just did a player-for-player swap? Well, it might not be that difficult to imagine between Spurs and Man United. Let's say Danny Rose and Luke Shaw, for example. Both players have somewhat strained relationships with their manager, Rose especially in the last few months, so it doesn't seem too ridiculous to suggest they might do that. Admittedly, Danny Rose is the better player and on face value would be worth more in transfer fees, but given the fact that Luke Shaw is 5 years younger, the 22-year-old still has years of potential ahead of him. Danny Rose is likely to move to United, where he'll probably more than double his wages. And with Luke Shaw coming to Tottenham, he'll reunite with Mauricio Pochettino. The 2 of them worked together at Southampton during the 2013-14 season, which saw Shaw break into the PFA Team of the Year. Up next is someone who just can't seem to nail down a permanent footballing home. With travels across Europe in recent seasons, he still hasn't reached his peak potential. Currently on loan at Valencia, from Inter Milan, with spells at Monaco, Sevilla and Lens, Geoffrey Kondogbia has certainly got all the talent to make him a top player, but the consistency just isn't there. There were times he looked like a world beater in that Monaco side, including scoring the first goal in a 3-1 victory at the Emirates. It's also the kind of form which persuaded Inter Milan to part with 40 million euros for him, but since his move to Italy, things haven't gone so well. The Frenchman is still only 24, however, and should Valencia not really look interested in keeping him permanently, Spurs could table an offer which would see the loan cancelled early and him move to his 6th club in 6 years. To be honest, it's a deal that's unlikely to happen, but Kondogbia would be an ideal replacement for the ageing Moussa Dembele at Spurs, with great physical power and midfield presence. Here we have one of 2 potential homecomings, which would be an absolute bargain for Spurs, should they sign him at any cost. Now, if early season reports are to be believed, Cristiano Ronaldo held a meeting with all the bigwigs at Real Madrid and produced a list of players that he deems aren't good enough to be in the Real Madrid first team. Now, along with a few fringe players that you would expect, 32-year-old maestro Luka Modrić was also in that list. Has Cristiano gone absolutely mad? Well, who are we to disagree with a now 5-time Ballon d'Or winner? If the supposed blacklist is true, then I implore Real Madrid to sell Modrić back to Spurs 110%. He can control the game with his deep line creativity, and his ability to set the match tempo is something Spurs often miss. They're great going forward, but the decisive key passes and the quickness of them has sometimes let them down. In recent seasons at White Hart Lane, Spurs have been brilliant, but on the bigger pitch at Wembley, they need to be more efficient. But that whole Wembley topic is something for another video altogether. Moving slightly further forward, and Spurs have a 3-man attacking midfield which, when on song, can be almost unstoppable as any in the world. However, having said that, when their weaknesses show, they often show all at the same time. There have been too many games this season where you'll find Christian Eriksen lacking the aggression and the determination to get stuck into the midfield. You'll find Dele Alli's petulant play stopping him from focusing on actually playing football, and you'll find Heung-Min Son drifting in and out of the game, not really getting involved too much. So what happens when they get replaced? Well, there aren't really many replacements, and that really highlights Spurs' lack in depth. Georgia's Kevin Nkudu is a good young player, but when he plays out wide on one side, it leaves the other side completely unbalanced. And as for Moussa Sissoko, not even he knows his best position. So where does the solution lie? Well, to be honest, I'm not too sure. But for the meantime, why not take a punt on Ross Barkley? He was told in the summer by then manager Ronald Koeman that he was to be sold from Everton. But since Koeman has left, Allardyce has taken over, and Barkley may have another chance to prove himself at Goodison Park, much like seemingly out-of-sorts striker Omar Niasse, who's now come back with 6 goals in 6 Premier League games. Personally, I still think he's young enough to be moulded into a fantastic player and has all the ability to do so. And to be honest, Any player who's drawn the slightest comparison to Spurs and England legend Paul Gascoigne will definitely be top of any Spurs fan's wish list. Now last but not least on this list would be the second homecoming, and one player who would leave Spurs fans dreaming of winning title after title. He's the second Southampton Academy graduate on this list, and after Mark Hughes, probably the second Welshman to ever move to Spain. But Gareth Bale coming back to Spurs is a long shot, but not without reason. Since moving to the Bernabeu in 2013, Bale has won 3 Champions Leagues, a Copa del Rey, Copa del Rey, Copa del Rey. Oh wow. Woo. Doing a real Spanish one there. 1 La Liga and 1 Copa del Rey. But with the Real Madrid fans notoriously demanding, and of course having failed to step out of the shadow of Cristiano Ronaldo, rumours consistently circulate about Bale returning to the Premier League. The only stumbling block will be Gareth Bale's wage demands, which would absolutely annihilate Spurs' structure and would probably cause a bit of unrest in the dressing room, as Danny Rose's head will probably explode when he finds out how much Bale is on a week. As a Spurs fan, I can tell you that Gareth Bale coming back to White Hart Lane would be absolutely phenomenal, and I'd probably name my firstborn Gareth. However, should he move back to the Premier League and adorn the red of Manchester United, I'll rip down all those posters and I'll never talk to him again. Sound like I'm overreacting? So there we have 5 potential winter transfer window signings for Tottenham. Do you think they're realistically going to join, or am I talking absolute rubbish? Let me know who you'd sign for your team and if Spurs really have a chance of bringing Gareth Bale back. I'll see you next time. I was like, Bale's won Champions League and a Copa del Rey. I was like, what? I'm retaking that.